Shang Wen. Okay, right. Okay, so before you start the presentation, I think I've already briefly explained to you about the rules of the presentation to group 3 just now. So same, you have 30 to 40 minutes for the presentation, including the Q&A session. Yeah. Okay. So now I'm going to give you 30 to 40 minutes for the presentation, and you can start now. Please introduce the topic to your friends as well. Oh yeah, it's there.
Okay. Distinguished panelists, guests, and fellow members, good afternoon. My name is Amelia, the moderator for today. On behalf of the organizing committee, I would like to extend a warm welcome to everyone to this academic forum, convened under the alignment with SDG 15 Life on Land. To elucidate our objective, we are tasked with examining a question of profound significance for Malaysia's future. Is wildlife conservation more important than human land development? Okay, so this dialogue sits at a critical intersection between ecological integrity and also socioeconomic progress. In terms of procedure, the forum will progress through 3 distinct segments: an initial round of position statements from our panelists, a subsequent round of cross-examination, and finally an open dialogue with our audiences. Okay, so as the moderator, my role is to facilitate a rigorous and respectful exchange. So I must therefore stipulate that the contributions of our panelists will be time-bound to ensure equitable participation. Now allow me to present our esteemed panels. Advocating for the proposition that wildlife conservation indeed holds a greater importance, we have Ms. Ewan, a wildlife conservation specialist consulting for Zoo Negara, and Ms. Shira, a senior wildlife ranger with the Department of Wildlife and National Park for Hilita. And advocating for our opposition that human land development must take precedence, we have Ms. Nina, a specialist in urban development and land planning, and also Mr. Surya, a sustainable development officer with the Ministry of Environment and Water. So without further ado, let us commence with round 1. We will begin by establishing foundational arguments. Ms. Ewan, I invite you to initiate our discourse. Could you articulate the rationale for prioritizing conservation within our national development paradigm?
Sure. Thank you, Amelia. The central thesis is the wildlife conservation constitute the indispensable bedrock of sustainable development rather than a competing interest. To substantiate this claim, one must consider is the biodiversity roles as ecological infrastructure. For instance, keystone species such as the Malayan tiger regulate prey population, thereby maintaining forest structure and health. Consequently, the degradation of the biological networks precipitate the systematic failure, which is diminished water purification, soil instability, and altered climate regulation. A pertinent illustration is the Zoo Negara collaborative program for the Malayan barrier, which is served not only as an situ conservation measure but also as a living repository of genetic diversity crucial for natural ecosystem restoration. So, I proceed that any development strategy which undermines this natural capital is fundamentally myopic, jeopardizing long-term socio-economic resilience.
A compelling argument framed within the concept of natural capital. So I would like to hear from the opposition side. Ms. Nina, how would you respond to this question, focusing on human land development?
Thank you, Ms. Amelia. I understand the environmental made by Ms. Sblek, but look at this issue from a different perspective, like focus on human needs. The reason we should prioritize endangered human because of strong population and economic needs. More than 75% of Malaysians live in city. So it creates a high demand of affordable homes, a good transport system, and industrial areas also. For example, development in Iskandar, Malaysia brought in forest investor and created many job opportunities. So while protecting every forest may sound perfect for the environmental, and it also creates problems by limiting access to land and for people who rely on it to earn a living. So I believe that responsible development guided by careful planning is not just important, but it is more duty to both current and future generations.
Thank you, Ms. Nina. You've made an important ethical case. To balance this with practical insights, let us turn to Ms. Shear. Okay, from your frontline experience, what are the actual outcomes of actually prioritizing conservation?
Thank you, Ms. Amelia. Based on my experience, shows that the idea is true. We believe that we can manage the lasting development of free fields because animals' habitats come parts of each other. For example, like elephant population in the Belum area, which is the huge and old rainforest in the northern part in the state of Perak. When we clearing the forest for plantation, we created separate species, which like elephants will herd into residential areas and will be damaging the conflicts. So the project that connect with ecosystem, like Central Forest Fine Master Plan, can reduce this problem. So the conclusion is, we would like to spending money to protect habitats before conflict happen more cheap. Then you need to deal with the damage, like prevent is better than cure. Essentially, protecting wildlife areas same as investing in the safety of rural communities.
Thank you, Ms. Shear. That's a powerful way of looking at the real-world effects of our own choices. Now, to complete this circuit of opening statements, let's invite Mr. Surya. Could you describe a framework where development leads yet meaningfully incorporate conservation?
Sure, Amelia. So certainly, I call this approach as emergent sustainability. It doesn't mean we ignore conservation. It means we make conservation a required step in any development project. So the rule is simple. We use biodiversity offsetting. This is where a developer clears a piece of land they are legally required to protect or fix a different area of the same ecological value. Okay, so for an example, have you guys ever heard about the Sungai Rail Hydropower project? So it's a project where has been made at Kelantan. So for done this project, they were actually required to agree to create a 500 hectare protection zone along the river upstream. So this is how it actually happens, the embedded sustainability. So while I disagree that we should stop development, if we have strict laws and clear enforcement, we can give the public the infrastructure that they need and without losing our nature at the same time.
Thank you, Mr. Surya. So, in summary, we've heard from two clear positions, a call to prioritize environment and prevention, and also a call to prioritize human progress within the framework of regulations and integration. Now, let's move to the second round, which is the cross-examination, where our panelists will ask each other questions to seek clarification and explore in depth their viewpoints. Now, I would like to ask Ms. Ewan for you to direct your first inquiry to the opposition.
Okay, thank you, Nia. So, Ms. Ina, you say that your model of responsible development is radically persuasive. However, to seek the clarification, how does this model definitively guard against the phenomena of death by a dozen cuts, where the cumulative impact of numerous, individually small developments leads to a critical habitat threshold breaches? Could you provide a specific regulatory or planning instruments that actively measures and enforces such cumulative impact, particularly for non-charismatic fauna whose loss might go unnoticed until irreversible?
Thank you, Ms. Moon. That's a very smart question, and I would like to already exists. For me, to strengthen these benefits, better than complete branding development, so it can lead to a political and economics.
Thank you both. That was an intriguing discussion on the sale of the problem and the tools we use to plan. Ms. Sheila, your question?
Ms. Surya, I must ask you a question. Immediate sustainability deals with a time-lag issue influenced against standard biodiversity effects. Ms. Surya, your point is correct. When the Earth nature habitat is destroyed, it becomes for a dual habitat to work just as well. During this long wait, endangered species like Malayan pencoli could die out quickly. So our model ensures zero loss in the short and medium terms through two main mechanisms. First is strictly avoidance or prevention, which is we will forbidding development in areas with irreplaceable biodiversity like angling foraging sites. And we use a precautionary approach for all other areas. If development is necessary, we must be designed from start to avoid harming the most sensitive habitats like the mangrove. And the second is we use the credit-based compensation, which is immediate impact that cannot be avoided. Developer must buy biodiversity credits before the construction begins. So will be generated by finding the immediate investment and can aid in the protection and enhancement in visiting similar habitats as well. So, and then the biodiversity credit also can be the money instantly for high-living patrols, restoring degraded areas and controlling species in the current. So action provide immediate benefit, ecosystem that balance that damage before the development is finished.
That is a very sharp observation, Ishida. You're absolutely right. If we destroy a forest today and plant new seeds tomorrow, there is a dangerous gap. It's like what, 20 to 30 years. So where animals like, just now you said about angling, right, have nowhere to go. That is why model requires like habitat banking. In this system, we do not wait to fix the system later. Indeed, developers must purchase credits from the land that has already have been restored and protected years in advance. So, before they even touch the ground for development, the replacement habitat is already mentioned and it's actually waiting for them. So, yeah, I hope that answers your questions.
An exchange on temporality and conservation. Ms. Nina, do you have any questions?
I have to Ms. Yuan. Ms. Yuan, I respect your strong focus on conservation that is an important value. But I need to look at this from social and economic side too. How does your conservation, like first approach, protect land ownership and traditional rights of indigenous communities such as the orang asli, especially when their lands are part of forests marked for conservation? Is there a risk that building conservation above everything could limit these communities' access to their own land, even though they have lived there for generations? Could this create a situation where conservation end up harming local people, where even when trying to protect the environment?
Okay, so this is a crucial and ethically complex question. My principle does not advocate for exclusionary preservation. On the contrary, the model that I support is one of the community conserved areas, CCA, which indigenous stewardship is formally recognized and integrated into the conservation legal framework. For instance, the partnership between the Jahai community and Pelihatan in Royal Balloon State Park demonstrates that the conservation priorities and community rights can be synergistic with the community acting as forest guardians. Therefore, the conservation imperative must be pursued through the participatory and rights-based approaches, not in spite of them.
Nishira, drawing from your military experience, I seek to understand the operational feasibility. If we were to accept the proposition's premise and significantly expand contact areas, the financial requirements for patrols, monitoring, and community engagement would be immense. Given finite public resources, how would you propose sustainability financing this expanded conservation estate without diverting funds from other critical social sectors like healthcare or education?
The question is about how to pay for long-term sustainability. The answer is to find ways to get money that are not just from the government project. So, like the methods include payment for ecosystem service (PES). This is when companies that use water, like utility providers, pay the communities who live near the forest upstream to protect the watershed. And then conservation funds, which is money comes from resources like green bonds, a type of loan for environmental projects, or a special tax on tourism. And then, for example, like the Kenyan Lake Tourism, ecotourism area, makes money, and some of the money is to put back into paying for local enforcement and community projects. This means this is the way we pay for conservation stock, being a cost to the government, and instead create a sustaining economy based on protecting our nature.
Okay, thank you. I hope that answers your question, Mr. Surya. So that concludes a very thorough discussion among our panelists. We've moved from principles to practical challenges of cost, timing, and fairness. So it seems like our panelists maybe have pulled some insights. So we'll just answer questions from the floor. I would like to invite questions from the floor. Please state your name and pose a question to any panelist or maybe all of our panelists. Do we have any question from the floor? Okay. So, Afni's question was, how do we balance wildlife conservation and human development without sacrificing each other? Do any of our panelists want to answer Afni's question?
Yes, I think I can answer your question. So actually, if they follow the law and if they had good enforcement, I believe that both of them can be like secured. So since the population is increasing nowadays, so people need new homes, new houses. So they need some space to create those to do the developments. So at the same time, we should not like ignore the nature, like wildlife. Just now, like the extinct pangolin. So we should create a safe space for them, like reserve forest for them. So by this, I believe that both of them can be survive or be balanced.
I do agree with Mr. Surya because I think that the most important thing isn't about which is human development more important or is wildlife more important. They are both important because the earth is like it needs both to like move on, you know. So the most important thing is to find a sustainable way to develop our developments, human developments. Okay, so do any other panelists have their viewpoints to share on this question? No?
Do we have one more question from the audience?
Okay.
My name is Lia and I have one question. If the land is a private owner and the area is crucial for surrounding environment, so what can alternatives do since the owner have the legal right of the land?
Can you repeat the question?
If the land is a private owner land and the area is crucial for surrounding environment, so what can alternatives do since the owner has the legal right on the land?
Okay, I see. Panelists, do you guys have any viewpoints? Well, I could share my viewpoint. Well, I think that since the land is a private land, right? So the first thing that we should do is to communicate with the nature and people, we should help each other. So if, let's say the owner agrees to do so, then things will work easier. But let's say if he doesn't, maybe he's really critical in having his own private land. Okay, so I think maybe the government can maybe give some incentives to him, provide some incentives, and see if he, like takes it. Yeah, but possibilities, maybe we don't need to take all of his private land. Maybe we could do some changes, like that. That's from my personal point.
Ms. Chair, and then for the rights and then owner, if you want to, the government push you to buy your land, you need to have the right for receiving a notice, like they must publish a notice in the Gazette to the landowner, and then you need to have the right in conversation, like the government must pay you for buying their land, for buying your land. So it's usually based on the market value and on the time. And then the third is right to appeal. If you think the compensation is too low or to the equation is unfair for you, then you can object and take the matter to the court.
Thank you for this. Okay, another question.
You said that government should pay us as a citizen to buy our land, but is it fair for wealthy government to ask we citizens to protect while, like, when those government already developed most of their own land for profit years ago?
That's a very deep question. Do you have any viewpoints?
You actually can't change things that happened before, but maybe by bringing a little change in between us, maybe in the future we can make changes from a mistake. Yes.
Well, I think like
No, that's not.
well, I think like because maybe you feel that it's unfair, right? Because the government used a lot of land for their own purposes, but those purposes are also towards us as they developed the land. Say they made roads, they made houses. It's all for us citizens, right? But so it is quite unfair to like take away your land because of our wrongdoings like that. But I don't think it's actually wrongdoings, but it's maybe the government can like make more ways in the future to they can like be careful in the future. Yeah, that's from me lah.
Maybe find safer alternatives.
Yeah, maybe they can find safer alternatives in the future so that something that has been done we cannot like reverse, but we can change the future so that it doesn't do it again. It doesn't repeat. Any more questions from the floor? We still have some time.
Okay, so I think, yeah, that's a wrap for our presentation today. Thank you very